everyone, this is Megan with Left in Knots, and today I want to show you in my Grids for Kids series how I have been sewing these blocks together. We're about halfway through. After you get past this next set of blocks, you'll be more than halfway through if you're making these along with me. And I thought I should probably show you guys how I've been joining these blocks. So first I'll show you my general layout here. I always plan where I'm going to put my squares first. So my monkey is going to be on top, the narwhal for N is going to be on this left side here, and the owl is going to be on the right side if you're looking at this as the center. You can certainly arrange them in any order that you want. Just make sure that you plan it out before you start stitching together so you don't make any mistakes that you have to go back and fix. So I may take a picture of this and post it on my blog as well, but I wanted to show you the order that I usually stitch these blocks together. So, I mean, you can start in any corner. I will be starting with my monkey and then my narwhal. And then you want to make sure you orient them the way you want them to be. So I want my monkey on top facing this way. Then my narwhal is going to be on the left side. So I'll sew them together like that. So that will be this number 1 right here. And then in the interest of not having to cut and tie every single edge, I've just been crocheting single crochet around in continuous lines as much as possible. So this is my number 1. Number 2, I've been going this way. Number 3, I've been going this way. Number 4 goes along that way. So you make that top square and then you come down this line back here, or that edge. That would do number 5. Number 6. Number 7 goes that way. Number 8 goes that way. And 9 goes that way. And then you do meet a corner right here where you're back to a point where you can't make a continuous line anymore. So you've got this line here that still needs to be stitched up, this edge here that still needs to be stitched up, and this edge here that still needs to be stitched up. So then I just snip my yarn, stitch up these 2 edges, and then on my last edge I'll stitch it up about halfway, stuff the block, and then finish stitching it up. And then this block is super nice because there really is no weaving in ends. You can just shove them inside. If you want to weave them in, be my guest, but I haven't really found it necessary. Okay, so that's how I've been sewing these together. And so I'll show you a few edges here. I'll show you a couple edges and then how I've been doing the corners to get a nice tight corner so that stuffing doesn't peek out. So again, my monkey is here. My narwhal is going to come down like this in the cube. So the head of the narwhal is on the left side of the monkey. And then I'm going to grab my white yarn. Any white yarn will do, or any color for that matter. Insert your hook into the first corner. Apologies if I keep going off camera here. This is a new camera setup for me, so I'm just getting used to it. So I attach with a slip stitch and then I chain 1. And I do crochet in that same stitch that I started in with the slip stitch. And then you're literally just crocheting down that whole edge. I try to do it pretty tight since this is a seam, and I want to keep all of that fill, that poly fill that we're stuffing these with in. And there should be 31 stitches along each side if you're doing these grids because they're 31 by 31. If you do find you have an extra stitch or a skipped stitch along an edge, it's really not the end of the world. I've run into that with my blocks, and you can just make it work. You can use one stitch twice or do whatever you need to do to make it combine. This is just making that nice clean edge. You'll notice in my first block, the A to C block, that I did a different joining technique, and I think I'm gonna go back and take that block apart and redo it because I like the clean look of this better. On my first block, I just did a loop stitch with a tapestry needle or an embroidery needle. And I don't like that effect quite as well, so I might go back and change that. But if you want to see what that looks like, you can take a look at the posting for letters A through C. So there I've gone down one edge. Now I'm going to take my third animal here, my owl. And remember, always refer back to the way you're planning on orienting these for your placement. So my owl is going to be upright, matching the direction of the narwhal, like that. So for this corner, I'm going to go through the bright yellow of the narwhal and the light yellow of the owl, and do one single crochet, and then I'm going to go back through that same stitch in the owl, and this time I'm going to go into the gold color of the monkey, do another pretty tight single crochet, and then you're facing the direction you need to be facing to, again, crochet down this line. And that's what your corner will look like. And I've found that makes a pretty tight corner. I have not had any problems with the fill coming out. It joins them really nicely. So I have tried also going through all three at once, and this way has worked a little bit better for me. But that's also an option. It's just to go through all three at once and just do the one stitch. I have 2 dogs, 2 cats, and a baby sleeping in my house right now, so it's a miracle that the background noise level right now is silent. But if you hear dogs barking, I apologize, but that's why. I have a house full. And this little owl graph is the one that started this whole project in my mind, so it's one of my favorites. I worked my pillow up in pink, so I decided to try blue on this one, and I like these colors too. I'll be honest, yellow is not my favorite color. It was kind of hard to find colors that all matched together nicely, but I think we got there in the end. And I like the idea of when these blocks are complete having a whole array of different colors. I'm really excited to see the final collection of blocks stacked up all together. Okay, so now we've reached another corner, and I've got my monkey. See if I can get far enough away from the camera here. My monkey, my narwhal, and my owl. And so now how I've been placing my letters is I've been placing my letters directly opposite of their animal. And like I said, I mean, you could do your arrangement totally differently. It doesn't really matter. You just need to know what it's going to be before you stitch them together. And so that would mean my N would go on this side of my cube. And so we'll do another corner here. Always make sure you have your wrong sides together when you're working on this. I'll show you one of my backs here. The nice thing about this project is when you're cross-stitching into a block or a pillow like this, you don't need to worry about this mess in the back. I'm not a cross-stitcher. I've cross-stitched casually when I was about 12 years old. But since then, this is my first cross-stitch type project. So if it's not as pretty as it should be, I apologize. But I found that it works, and like I said, you don't need to worry about any of this mess on the back. You just need to make sure that you hide it on the inside of the block. Hide the mess, right? It's a good philosophy to live by. Okay, so another corner. Oh, my yarn split there a little bit. Go back in there. Another corner, going through the light yellow of the owl and the bright yellow of the N. Single crochet. Go back through that same stitch in the bright yellow and into the next stitch of the gold, and single crochet. And there again is your nice tight corner. So I'll skip along here and finish this top, these top 4 lines, and then I'll show you how I go down the side, and then I'll probably skip again and jump right to where I would stop to stuff. Okay, so now we're back at our starting corner again, and we want to make sure we close this up nice and tight. So I'm going to put one more stitch between the light yellow of the letter O and my gold of my monkey square. And then I've usually just been grabbing this first stitch here. Grab the tail of my yarn at the same time. Didn't want to do that. Grabbing the first stitch, pulling through, and then pulling that nice and tight. So then we can just go ahead and, if you want to save yourself weaving it or putting it in later, you can tuck that white tail in right there. And then you can just go ahead and start single crocheting down this edge, and it makes, again, a nice tight knotted corner that won't lose stuffing. So before I get too far along that line, I'm sorry I can't move my camera back any further, but this is the square we've got now. Let's see if I can move it back just a tiny bit. So we've got our monkey in the center. That's what we started with, our center. Our narwhal is over here. Our owl is there. Letter O is at the monkey's head. So now I'm ready to stitch back down this side. I'll stitch down this end, add my last square that we've got, the letter M, to go across from the monkey at the bottom. And then I'll come back again and show you how I snip the yarn after those 9 connected seams and do the 3 unconnected seams. And then we'll stuff the block and it'll be done. All right, so now we've got our last block, our last square incorporated into the block. Our letter M is across from our monkey. And so this is the end of my continuous 9-edged seam. And the last thing I'm going to do is just go into this last corner here, No exact spot, just pick a spot that looks like it'll cinch it all up together nicely. Pull it through. You're kind of pulling through a lot here. Just a slip stitch and pull nice and tight. Actually, I'm going to do one more through here just so I don't have any yellow showing through. Okay. And I'm going to cut. I always leave a nice long tail. Just, you can always make it shorter if you want to. And then you can pull this tail in now through one of your open ends, or you can do it later, however you want to do it. I'm just going to get rid of it now. So that pulls into the block. And so we have 3 seams left. Remember, the monkey was the top of our block, narwhal, owl. We've got 1 vertical seam here on either side of the owl, and then 1 between the N and the O. So pick whichever seam you want to do next. And I think I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I am left-handed. I'm sure you caught on by now, so you might be doing this a little bit differently, but the overall technique should be the same. So for joining to your next block, I actually always like to join to one of the stitches done in white. I feel like that leaves less of a gap, and then it looks more continuous as a finished product. I was terrible at geometry. If there's a way that I could be doing this in all one continuous line, let me know. 9 is the most edges I've figured out how to connect together. So I just connect that with a little slip knot and go straight into my single crochet. All the way down that seam. I apologize if my crochet looks a little bit clumsy right now. I'm not used to standing and crocheting under a camera. I'm used to sitting curled up in my chair and crocheting like that. So this is a little bit different viewpoint than I'm used to. And I don't know if you can hear on your camera, my yarn is squeaking. That's how tight I do crochet these edges, just because I don't want stuffing to get out. It's a terrible sound, I know, and not one you normally want when you're crocheting, but in this case I do want those stitches really tight. I teach crochet classes, and I always tell my students that if your yarn is squeaking, you need to loosen it up a little bit, because you don't really need squeaky yarn when you're crocheting most of the time. Although, to be fair, some yarns squeak more than others. This block I've been using, if you've been following along on my blog posts, I've been using a combination of worsted weight acrylic. I have found that some brands work really well together. Hobby Lobby, I love this yarn, has been a little bit, it's a lighter weight worsted. So it ends up making a little bit smaller stitches. Not a huge deal, but I probably won't use it again in combination with yarns like Loops and Threads Impeccable, Red Heart, Super Saver, Red Heart, with Love, and Vanna's Choice. Those 4 have worked really well together. So I'm at the end of my seam here, and I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to go into one of the posts of my white stitches and slip stitch through there, pull nice and tight, snip my yarn, and pull through. And then again, you can hide that tail whenever you want, before or after stuffing. So I will jump one more time here, finish this whole seam, half of this seam, and then I'm going to stuff it, and then I'll come back and show you how I finish it all up. Very similar to how I've been finishing these edges, but I'll show you the final product. Okay, so we're back now, and I've got this stuffed most of the way, and I'm sorry I can't back this camera up anymore without holding it up, but there you can see it's stuffed most of the way. I'm going to work a little bit more stuffing in, finish up the corners. This block kind of eats stuffing a lot more than you would think. And I can't tell you the exact amount, but I'd say close to a pound of stuffing maybe per block. You don't want to overstuff, but you also don't want to understuff. So you just kind of have to hit that sweet spot where it holds its shape without bulging too much. And the corners are one of those spots that you really want to get the stuffing into well. I always start from the bottom and work my way up and then try to patch in holes as I go. And it kind of sticks to the outside of the block, but you can pick that off as you go. Sorry, just checking out my air pockets. So I think that should be, grab a teeny tiny bit more for this corner here. This last corner that we're going to crochet closed here. Sorry, I'll turn it so you can see it. Still a teeny bit more. Okay. Now you'll see this is my last seam, and I crocheted about halfway up. I just need enough space to shove my hand through there to stuff. And then the nice thing about this technique is once you're stuffed, you don't need to do anything differently. You just pinch it together. If you want to hold it together with, I don't know, safety pins or stitch markers or something, you sure can. And then you just finish closing up that seam the same way we have with all of the others. Last stitch there, last single crochet, and then I'll again slip stitch into the post of the white stitch from the corner. Snip it, and I just have these two last tails to sneak in there. Just pick a spot to put my hook in and drag it through. Maybe drag it through one more time. If you want to weave in more thoroughly than that, like I said, you sure can. I haven't found it necessary. My daughter has been playing with these. They've held up great. She's had a blast. She likes to throw them. I did think about putting plastic mesh in the cube to give it more structure, and I would still be interested in seeing how that would turn out. I'm grabbing some filling there. I'd still be interested in seeing how, if that plastic mesh helped make it more cube shaped. But for my daughter's purpose, I've left them squishy because she's a 1-year-old and she is active and likes to throw things, so we're leaving them soft. So just snip that, and now we've got our MNO block. So there's that owl, monkey, and narwhal. I hope you are enjoying this series. Look for this pattern on my blog soon. and also letters A through L are up on there. We'll be going through the whole alphabet. I've got an animal for each one. Some of the later, more difficult letters are going to get a little creative, like this narwhal here. But I really hope you're enjoying this. Don't forget to visit my blog, www.leftinknots.com. And if you are enjoying this, I would really appreciate a Facebook like or even a comment or a picture of the projects you're making. I would really love to see what people are doing with these graphs, because I know that the possibilities are endless and this is just one way to use them. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.